Good morning and welcome to the 2023 edition of the Multi-Trans-Interdisciplinary Conference hosted by the Walter Sisulu University at the East London International Convention Centre. This year's theme is the Africa We Want, stimulating transformation, development and sustainability through multi-inter-transdisciplinary reflections. Over the next 3 days, we will be speaking to various researchers and presenters in exploring the theme further. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome in studio the host and Walter Sisulu University first female Vice Chancellor and Principal, Professor Rushila Nolundi Songa.
We realize that, especially some of us who are researchers, that challenges are complex. And because they are of the complexity, you cannot try to, or you will not succeed if you tackle them from a disciplinary perspective. Now, having said that, I think it's also important to also acknowledge or take cognizance of the fact that disciplinary approaches are important. We need to specialize. But you also need to be aware that in as much as we're specialized in our disciplines, those modes of learning or modes of knowledge will not address these complex problems. Therefore, we need to collaborate across the disciplines, meaning with other researchers who are in other disciplines. So hence the element of interdisciplinarity and transdisciplinarity. Through these conversations and engagements, and we also want to create that awareness amongst our academics, but of particular importance amongst our students. Our students from undergraduate to postgraduate must appreciate the fact that it is important, yes, to do your program, but also to have a realization that that program, especially its knowledge, is limited if you want to address these very complex issues that we're confronted with. As a manager, your job is not to compete with your staff members, it's to help them thrive and create that enabling environment, and that's what I did. And I kept talking about it, and I kept being unapologetic about it until people began to see it for what it was. And those who were already hungry, they took it upon themselves to run with it. So that also helped. Indeed, as you heard this morning, I always say, not because I'm trying to brag, but it's also a reminder that when I got here in 2019, there were 4 NRF-rated researchers. I was the 4th one in 2020. And nobody really at that point was paying much attention to it. And then that was another thing that I had to talk about all the time, like I'm doing even now, and I won't stop. To say that it's not about the rating that you get, whether you are a Y or P or a C or a A or a B. It's just you saying, I'm willing to put my work out there and for my work to be scrutinized by people who don't even know me, nationally and internationally, and saying, this is a person that we think is making a contribution to knowledge. And I think that my colleagues are hearing it. And that's why now we're at 27, from 4 to 27, and we're counting. And that's why we submitted 20 applications. But having said that, I get extremely upset when managers let go of academics, especially if they're researchers or they're good teachers. Because one of the things that we need to prevent, and of course people choose where they want to, but if we are to blame for them leaving, then I get extremely upset about it.
I'd like to introduce a very dynamic academic from the University of South Africa's Faculty of the Thabo Mbeki African School for Public and International Affairs, Professor Andreas Veldhuizen.
Multi-transdisciplinarity in research refers to the involvement of multiple disciplines involved in research, concerning researchers using the methodology from their own disciplines to investigate a specific research problem. Interdisciplinarity is about at least two disciplines collaborating with each other and bringing together the findings from the different discipline perspectives into one body of knowledge. Both of those concepts steer away from monodisciplinarity, which is working from one discipline only, the traditional disciplines that developed through the centuries, where academics organized themselves into disciplines based on a own set of values in those disciplines. And we discovered that that is not good enough for looking at complex problems and sometimes wicked problems in our society, and that we need at least a multi or interdisciplinary approach, but preferably move to a transdisciplinary approach, which is the ideal situation where you erase the boundaries between the different disciplines, and where you look at the world without boundaries in the mind, and without the artificial boundaries that is set by academic disciplines. It is most suitable to look at complex problems. Monodisciplinary research, for instance, if somebody look at solving problems just from a mathematical perspective, it will not bring you to all the answers, especially in terms of wicked problems, meaning that a problem that if you try to fix it on the one side, some other problems pops up. So it's a very intangible problem. Now, transdisciplinary allows the student and the researcher to look holistically at the problem and looking at the various solutions. However, I need to caution whoever decides on the transdisciplinary approach that it is not for the faint-hearted. You will move across borders, across boundaries, which is not always appreciated in the academic world, and you need to engage with those kind of obstacles to ensure, well, first of all, ensure that you know what you are doing. It's very easy to confuse interdisciplinarity with transdisciplinarity, for instance. But yes, your researchers should have the courage to go transdisciplinary if they look at the very urgent societal problems like violence that we are experiencing.
Joining us now is the MEC Eastern Cape Provincial Department of Education, Honorable Fundile Kade.
In all institutions, whether you call institutions of government, whether you call institutions like churches, whether you call institutions like your universities, wherein you are going to create value systems that are inclusive in nature, appreciate the individual capabilities of all those that participate in the noble idea of 2063, the African continent we want. When you speak of 2063, the Africa we want, what do you mean? What is it that is going to be different from the Africa that we have now? And what could be the constraint then of the Africa we want in terms of the current setup that we have. So in essence, I'm saying, can we achieve whatever target that we set for ourselves without dealing fundamentally first with the orientation and the thinking that we have now, so as to prepare for the future battles ahead of the African continent? One thing that I think this conference must resolve is the optimal utilization of these universities that we have in the province. The starting point is on how government use the research arms that we have of these universities and not outsource that function. My argument is that, for example, last year, we produced 63,000 plus grade 12 passers. Now the question is, are you able to absorb them? If not, where do these kids end up to? If, for example, we have got 64,000 learners that have passed grade 12, and the capacity of the TVET and the universities we have in the province can only absorb 40,000, where is the 20,000? So in a way, are you not then subscribing to this welfarist state of a 70% population of the country depending on social grant? And what are the implications of a 70% population of the people depending on grant system of government, not participating on the mainstream of the economic development and otherwise? So I'm saying, for us to resolve the issue of the queues in the 350s, that must be resolved in the classroom, first and foremost.